Okay, in this video, I'm going to talk about the final part of this small house project that you've been working on. I'm in the file, and as you can see, I have the annotation blocks that I created. One of them is this north arrow, and it is located in the layout view. One of them is the detail title, and the other one is in model space. So I'm going to click on the model tab here. As you can see, these blocks have been added to identify the rooms. And I've added a liter and a donut wherever the block won't fit in the room. Keep in mind my scale is at 1/8 of an inch here, and that's what it had to be when I brought these in so that they would scale to the correct size. So I'm going back to the floor plan layout, and as you can see, well, first of all, let me double click in there and change the scale to 1/8. So as you can see, it's pretty tight. I tried to create a bigger viewport, but it's too close to the borders, and I'm getting some of my information is getting cut out. So this gives us an opportunity to work a little bit more with title blocks. The first assignment that you had for this course was to create the title block that you see right here, 8.5 by 11 with a portrait orientation. What we're going to do now is set up a new title block that's larger so that we can fit this floor plan as well as the elevation, the section, and enlarged drawings of one of the rooms on the sheet. So there are standard sheet sizes in addition to the letter size one that we have been working with. In the US, in North America, often we use the standard sizes of architectural A, B, C, D, E, etc. And they're basically set up with imperial units. There is a metric equivalent, but typically if you were working in metric, you would not be using these sizes. We are going to use the architectural C size, which allows us to make a sheet that's 18 inches by 24. In our case, it's going to be 24 inches wide by 18 inches high. Okay, so in the AutoCAD file, one of the first steps that you'll be doing is right-clicking on the floor plan layout tab and making a copy of it. I'm going to move it to the end and click on, well, I'm going to click on the create a copy check box here, check mark that and say okay. So now you'll see one that says floor plan 2, and if I right click on that, I can rename it, call this one final drawings. All right, next we will go to the page setup. Now you may recall that to get to the page setup, we went to the menu browser, to the arrow next to print, and we clicked on page setup. And this is where we set up the sheet and make the drawing ready for printing. So you may have different current layout or page setups in there. The one that I used as a basis for my title block was this one right here, but yours might be titled something slightly different. What I'm going to do is create a new one. So I'm going to click on that letter portrait, and then I'm going to say new, and we're going to call this one, I'll put my initials in the front here. We're going to call it Arc C and say okay. And okay. Now these settings will, the only one we're going to change right now is the architectural C. So be careful not to choose the ANSI C, as they're slightly different sizes. We are going to use the Arc C right here, 24 by 36. So you should see, or 24 by 18 inches high. Make sure that you're seeing ccc.ctb here. If not, you're going to need to retrieve it. You'll find information about how to bring that in under the title block assignment, but hopefully it's located where you had placed it before. Now I'm going to set this to the size, but I'm going to have to come back in here because I haven't drawn the sheet yet. So I'm going to say okay. And I'm going to say set current. Click on it, set current, and close. Okay, now obviously we need to make some changes here. The first one that I'm going to make is to generate a new sheet. So I'll put my current layer on G sheet, and I'm going to make a rectangle from the same lower left-hand corner. And this one will be 24, 18. Okay, so this one, instead of being a portrait orientation, will be a landscape orientation. Now I need to go back to page setup, and I can go the same way by going to the menu browser to the print menu, but I can also just type in page setup. It's a little faster. Okay, I'm going to click on the new one that I made, and I'm going to modify it. Okay, I've got this already set. What I need to do is establish where the plot area is. So I've clicked on window, and I'm going to click on the lower left-hand corner of that new rectangle and the upper right-hand corner. And for the orientation of the drawing, I'm going to change it to landscape and click on OK. That's fine. And close. Right, so you should see the white area has now filled that rectangle. I can come down to this sheet and delete it now. Okay, so I still have my viewport in there, and I'm going to start to move things around a little bit. I'm going to move this so it's not so close to the edge. I'm going to make it bigger so that all those dimensions fit in there. I'm not being very precise here about the location of it. What I want to do is bring everything I'm going to include in here first, and then I'll start working with the orientation. Okay, now my current layer is G sheet, but I want to make some viewports and I don't want them to print. So I'm going to click on G viewport, and I'm going to type in M view. Okay, for this viewport, I'm going to double click. And first thing I'm going to do, this one's going to be for the section elevation. I'll kind of center it as much as I can, as well as I can. And then I will go here and change the scale to 1/8 of an inch. Should be a little bit bigger. Double check this one. This is 1/8 inch. Okay. I'm going to make another viewport, and this one is going to be for the enlarged drawing. Okay, so there's my viewport. I'm going to zoom in a little closer here, but I want to see the whole viewport. So double click. The scale for this one is going to be double the size. So that means 1/4 inch equals a foot. And I'm going to make the living room the view that I want to show. So now what I can do is start manipulating the window. Maybe I don't need to include so much of the room, of the courtyard space, but I'll include a little bit. This site doesn't matter. There's not a whole lot showing in there. All right, so now I have these 3 viewports and 4 drawings. And I can just make a few adjustments here. Let's pull this one down a little bit. Looks like I have a line showing in the model space that I'm going to remove. Go to model space, click on this construction line. It maybe wouldn't have printed anyway, but I just want to get a better sense of how the drawings are going to look on the page. And I'm going to need to move this up a little bit so I have a little more room for the title block. Okay, so we probably could fit more drawings on this page, but this works for what we're doing now. If you want to get a sense of how it's going to look on the paper, you can also change your layer, let's say, to 0, and go in here and turn off the viewport layer. So that's how those drawings will kind of look on the sheet. I want to do a few things to sort of clean up the composition here. I'm going to try to center this one on these drawings. I've got too big a space in the middle here. And, you know, it's usually you don't want the middle part to be bigger than the two sides. So I'll go back and turn on the viewports and move them in. So move command, click on viewport, bring it in. Make sure that everything in your viewport is showing. Okay, that looks pretty good. Right, and as far as centering these drawings goes, it's a little difficult to find a true center. It's more of a visual center, but it felt like this was a little bit too far over to the left, so I'm going to slide it over here. Oops, and then I'm going to actually bring both of them closer to center. And I'll go and I'll check without the viewports on to see how the sheet lays out. So it's pretty good. It's maybe I want to move them back just a little bit towards the right. It feels like this side over here is smaller than this one. So I'm going to turn back on those viewport layers and pick both of these and move them over a little bit. Okay. So now we're ready to start manipulating some of the other components of the title block. This is my text string right here. It has all the information about the drawing. The problem is it's a little too small. So I'm going to type in MO. You can type in properties to bring up the properties window. I'm going to double the size of this. So the paper text height. Let's see how it looks at 1/4 inch. Better. And I want to center it. So right now, if I scroll down here, in the X direction, it is 4 1/4. So that's a distance from here to 0, 0, which is, or at least 0 on the X axis. But remember, this is a 24-inch sheet. So if I want it to be centered left to right, I can change this value to 12 inches. The height above the bottom is set to 1.5 inches, and I think that's fine. Okay, here is my north arrow. Keep in mind that north arrows are only associated with plan drawings. We never put a north arrow on an elevation or a section or any other kind of drawing. It's just the plan, as if it were a map, right? And they're going to be located next to the title, the detail title. So I'm going to move this in. And I'm going to try to position it so that it is kind of at the far left here. So I'm going to move my title or my detail title from the quadrant point. So turn on quad. I want it to kind of align with the north arrow and also to the left side of the drawing. And erase those. And I'm going to copy that. So again, move it from its quadrant point. This time, I'm going to locate it first at the left edge of the section. And then I'll take it and I'll give a little space between it. Maybe let's try 1 inch. That's okay. Maybe it could be a little bit closer. You know, I kind of want it to be closer to the drawing it's referencing than the one below it. So I'm going to move it up 0.25. So it's now 3/4 of an inch below the drawing, and I'll copy it from the ground line, basically, so that there's a similar relationship. And then I'll make one more copy of that detail title. And this one, I will locate. You might want to turn on perpendicular. You notice that I just typed in the override for that, but you can also set so it's giving me kind of similar relative points. Okay, so now I'm ready to go in and change the text. So I'm also going to put this north arrow. I'm going to make a copy of it, and I'm going to put it next to the enlarged plan. So I'm going to click on this here, and I will see if it lets me. No, I'm going to need to create a little guideline here. Move, and then shift this over. Look for the quadrant point or an end point, perpendicular, erase my little construction line. Okay. Now, the sheet numbers. So typically, well, it varies what the order of the numbers are going to be. In this case, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Sometimes you go from top to bottom, left to right, sometimes from lower right to upper left. It kind of depends on the situation. For a presentation drawing, I generally would want to go from left to right. And since this is kind of the most important drawing, this plan, I'm going to make that number 1. Remember, for these blocks, if they were made with attributes, you can double click on them and then you can change them. So detail number is 1. The scale is going to be 1/8. For the title of the drawing, I'm going to call this, I'm going to do these all in caps, floor plan. And this one, I'm going to give this number 2. The scale is at 1/8 inch, and I'm going to call this section. Okay, and this one here, 3. We'll call this one is the south elevation. Okay. When we say elevation and we reference the compass orientation, if north is up, as it is with this, as indicated with this north arrow, this is the south elevation, this is the west elevation, this is the east, and up here is the north. It's kind of like saying the north side, the south side, etc. And for this last one, I'm going to double click on it. I'm going to change this to, the detail number is going to be 4. The scale in this case is going to be 1/4 inch equals foot. And the detail is going to be, let's see here, living room, enlarged. Okay, so whatever room you chose to do this, you're going to, right. One last thing we'll do before we go ahead and proceed with printing the sheet. I'm going to go back to model space, and I am going to make, bring in another living room block. I'm going to type in I for insert. I'm going to look for it, but before I bring it in, this time I'm going to change my scale to 1/4 inch and scroll down here till I find the correct room label. Okay. We'll just say okay for now. I just want to zoom in and take a look at it. So as you can see, the room label has adjusted to the size of the scale that I have set for model space. And I'm going to change this to living room and say okay. And now let's zoom extents. Got a lot of things open here. Let's start to close some of these. I'm going to go back to my final drawing sheet. And as you can see, the new block appears, but the old one doesn't, because this viewport has been set to 1/4 inch. So it is connecting the block that was inserted at 1/4 of an inch to the scale of the drawing. Okay. So that is the sheet. We're going to change this title here to small house. We'll just call it small house project. And then you can include your name there. I'm going to make sure my spacing between these is all the same. I've got an extra space here. Okay, maybe I put 2. I think I put 2 in between everything. So just be consistent with how your title appears. And now you're ready to print. So you can go up to the menu browser to do this, or you can do this by typing in plot or print plot. I think plot is the one you need to do. I'm going to preview my page here, make sure everything is appearing as it's supposed to. Okay, so this sheet was probably big enough that we could have gotten another enlarged view, but I think you get the idea here with this. Okay, and I'm going to press enter and create my PDF, and that's it. I'm going to call this small house project, similar to the title that's on the sheet. And then I'll hit save.